Good afternoon, Mario, or early evening in Thailand. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Shaun. Great to see you again.
So, Mario, you're CEO of the Pacific Asia Travel Association. You're an old friend of World Tourism Forum Lucerne, and you're a serial entrepreneur of the tech space. I want to start by asking you how we translate the science and a very clear message we're getting from scientists on species loss into policy and into practical actions from a tourism industry perspective.
Yeah, I think this is a topic that was there way before COVID-19 happened. It's something that we as an industry have been talking about for quite some time. The importance of preserving nature and the environment that we live in, which is critical. I mean, if you think about it for a moment, there's a vast amount of people who travel specifically for exploring nature based, either if it's actually animal life or different species, or even floral, or a combination of these two. And if we don't preserve it, then essentially we lose a big part of tourism moving forward. Adding beautiful places to visit are actually critical. And I do believe that there's a lot more effort that needs to be done by both public and private. I wouldn't actually put all the burden on the public sector, as often we hear. I think it's a joint effort between both public and private sector to protect these beautiful assets that we have.
Because I think the reality is also that many conservation assets will not survive without the tourism revenue. So that's a very interesting symbiotic relationship. And then the important role for the traveler as well, the tourist, to make sure that responsible tourism is part of their approach to travel.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of education that needs to be done as part of it. So it's really, you know, it's the private sector, it's the public sector, but it's as well as the consumers and the travelers who all need to play a role.
So if you look at across the travel and tourism value chain, and we're talking about stakeholder capitalism, resetting the relationship between nature and business and people, what's some of the best practices you're seeing out there from your membership base and as you travel through the world?
Yeah, I've seen some good practices being done by tour operators, like here in Thailand specifically, working with local communities to protect the cultural aspect of the community, obviously, which is also critical, as well as the nature surrounding them, to essentially welcome tourists into different environments of what people may be used to when they come to Thailand. So as I'm sure you probably know, Thailand for the last few years have been promoting secondary and tertiary regions outside of the 6 most popular areas of Thailand, trying to get people to go and explore some areas that are actually maybe lesser known. And big part of that is either the farming communities or the nature-based communities also, which I think is really critical here.
How has COVID changed all of this, Mario?
COVID changed in many ways, some positive and some maybe not so positive in different ways. Obviously, the tourism industry is very much down and challenged at the moment. Everything is pretty much stagnant. Domestic tourism here specifically in Thailand, but also across Asia, as many other parts of the world have been booming, which is a good thing. Getting us to go and explore our own regions and country. But on the nature aspect or environmental aspect, sure, we have less pollution in Bangkok, which is a big bonus. We're all very happy with this. Less traffic also, which is also great. We've seen nature taken back into the cities and other places too, where we've seen wild animals in the streets of Bangkok and other cities around the world that we haven't seen before. However, there's the other aspect. We've seen also a huge increase in consumption of plastic or usage of plastic. We've seen masks are actually being thrown away in the oceans. So there's a negative and a positive. And I think this is an area that both public and private sector need to pay a lot more attention to these areas, and having some good recycling process in place, more investment into renewable energy. And I see this as an opportunity for everyone to maybe invest in some areas that are actually really required to not only sustain tourism today, but make tourism better for the future.
So if you had to have an elevated pitch to governments in responding in a post-COVID reset to the challenges we face as a sector, but also rebalancing the balance between biodiversity and tourism and people. What would that single-minded message to governments be?
I think this is a topic that we've talked about in the industry for quite some time, but now actually is the perfect occasion to really go deep into it, which is management of capacity. We've seen areas of different parts of the world where we saw over tourism, too many tourist concentrations in different places. And I think what the situations prove to us and shows us and give us an opportunity is to rethink about managing that capacity moving forward and limiting it in certain places. Certainly in national parks and beautiful nature-based area, there should be a cap of number of visitors for a period of time during a certain days or certain time of the year, and try to even it out and spread it out. I'm not saying stopping people from visiting, but however managing that numbers of capacity so that nature can regrow and retakes its natural space so that we can all enjoy it, or at least we can enjoy it for part of the year.
An opportunity to do it better and to reset and build
Absolutely.
better forward. Mario, final question. I know you're also a serial entrepreneur in the technology space. What opportunities does all these technologies that we talk about around the fourth industrial revolution, big data, and so on, what opportunities does it create to re-educate the consumer, but also to change the way we look after nature, build green destinations, and so on?
This is the area where I'm really excited about. It's hard to be excited these days around anything presently at the moment, but specifically this area is actually really interesting for me, because what we've actually seen over the last few months is an acceleration of implementation of exponential technologies or new technologies across the world in different sectors. Things are actually moving faster. Where we had resistance before in actually implementing some technologies, now actually they're being accelerated to allow us to be able to travel and enjoy travel again into the future. But beyond this, if you think about material science, the way we build and construct, cement contributes to 40% of contributions of CO2 in the world. Now, there are alternatives to cement. There are actually much better alternatives that actually gives you a much lower CO2 emissions that can be used to build in a different way. So now people are starting to think, well, what can we do in that time to rebuild in different manners? If you think about renewable energy, mode of transportations, and they're actually changing also, that would allow us to reduce that CO2 emission target that we all have if we want to preserve the planet. Now, we're talking today about preserving nature, but there's a much bigger objective here, is climate change and ensuring that we actually protect this entire planet that we have, that both animal life, flora life, as well as human life can cohabit together for centuries and millennials.
Good. Thank you very much for spending time with us this early evening, Bangkok time, and look forward to seeing you in person or virtually at World Travel Market in London in November.
Thank you very much, Shaun. Great to talk to you again.
Thank you, Mario.